Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We are still in the World Cup studio. Patrick Van Straan, Christopher Hamill join me. How are we, gentlemen?
Very good, thanks. Better than you, by the sounds of things.
I am ill. I'm drastically ill, so I might not speak an awful lot this episode because my voice is just giving up on me. How are you?
Yeah, I put my back out, and I am just coming through the end of a cold, of a flu, so I do feel sorry for you.
Thanks, man.
We had our jabs, though, didn't we?
We have had our jabs.
So you should recover quickly.
Get your jabs. Get your flu jabs in. Anyway, I can't think...
In the link in the description below.
I can't think of a good segue from jabs to worst 11 of the World Cup today, which is what we're going to be attempting to construct because there have been some honking performances from some superstar names at this tournament, haven't they? Basically, we're going to try and build an 11. We'll start with the goalkeepers, shall we? Because there's been some diabolically bad performances. I mean, I hyped Unai Simon up to death on We Need to Talk. Linking into Tottenham, I thought it'd be a good transfer. €30 million buyout clause supposedly from Bilbao.
Watching a lot of Athletic Bilbao, have we?
And then, good God, what's happened during the World Cup, man?
To be fair,
it's
worth saying, right, that you can have a bad World Cup but still be a good player worth signing.
Yeah.
And also, people do kind of get onto certain players and decide they're rubbish. So, for instance, everything I've seen about Rodrigo de Paul at this World Cup, I've basically disagreed with.
Have you?
I think I saw him have one bad game, but yeah, I think he's been really important. I think he does stuff in that midfield which allows the rest of the team to play. But Unai Simon.
How dare you be so reasonable at the start of this episode, by the way?
How many errors
otherwise,
did he
somebody's going to go on to a move, aren't they? In January, and everyone will be like, he's a quality player. You can't judge him on the basis of 3 games. It's like we're just saying he had a bad World Cup. But Unai Simon,
he has had a terrible World Cup.
He's had as many errors as any team has at the World Cup. Turn your emails off.
Yeah, come on, Hamill.
What's the matter?
Really poor from me.
Unbelievable stuff. Tell us about Unai Simon then. Go on.
Yeah, you were about to rip my stat there. As many errors leading to goals as any team at the World Cup, which is just humiliating. I mean
that when you make an error as a keeper, it is
pretty bad. But I also thought, he is famed for his distribution from the back, and one of the reasons Luis Enrique picks him is because he definitely supports build-up play, and that's one of the reasons the likes of David De Gea haven't made this side, and he's brought Robert Sanchez and David Raya along for the ride as well. I thought his distribution was shaky. I thought when people applied pressure to him, he looked a bit dodgy, especially in the Germany game. I thought he was all over the place under the slightest bit of pressure. Extremely disappointing given how highly rated he is. Obviously, he is a better goalkeeper than the World Cup has suggested, so that might mean a team is able to get him at a lower fee than was previously being touted. But yeah, I just think he and the entirety of that Spain squad pretty much, bar maybe Gavi, and came out of it pretty poorly.
Pedri is pretty solid.
I didn't think Pedri had his best. I wasn't that impressed by Pedri.
But he was their best midfielder.
I thought Gavi was better than Pedri, no?
No, Gavi came off early twice.
I thought Pedri's like the indispensable guy in that midfield. But to be honest, they just played a bunch of midfielders in other places. Like their best midfielder was probably Rodri, who was playing centre back.
Yeah,
he was averaging 150
but
passes
who
a game.
cares? Honestly, I've seen these stats. He had 200 passes. 200 passes for one shot means nothing.
Look, we're going to come on to the midfield, I think, in a bit. But I don't think you will get Simon as at a knockdown price purely because of the way Athletic Club runs.
You're right.
So unless, say, Chelsea go for him and say we will send Kepa the other, like a keeper they can have. Then they're going to say, well, no. Now we've got to generate a guy through our academy because we can't just
but they could have
buy a keeper.
If he'd have had a stunning World Cup, they could have had a bidding war happening where teams were having to pay more than that buyout clause of 35, whatever it is. Whereas now I can't see teams jumping the gun to go through Unai Simon in January.
Still the starting keeper for a major nation at the World Cup. I mean, it looked a bit shaky, but as you said yourself, has been better in qualifying. Just looked like the occasion was a bit too big fit. I mean, that feels a bit lazy, but you know what I mean? Like his pass act went down 5% from qualifying to the World Cup. What do you call that except nerves?
Which probably equates to one clanger as well, per 90, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
One misplaced ball.
And maybe being asked to play in an even more possession-based system than Bilbao are operating in. Spain at this World Cup I don't think I saw a pass over about 5 metres in length.
Yeah, but it's not like he was short of options Enrique, when it comes to keepers that can play with the ball at their feet, right? David Raya, Sanchez as well.
Kepa
in reserve. Yeah, David De Gea left at home, Kepa left at home, which people were hypercritical of after the second game when Unai Simon looked a little bit shaky, but you can understand why he did that. I think to punish him retrospectively for that is just being a bit of I think he's a great candidate, as is Neuer. Neuer was honking. So, I mean, conceded 5 from 13 shots. which gave him a 61% save rate. He allowed 5 from an XG of 3.4, and only 7 teams conceded more group stage goals than Germany. And obviously they were porous in defence as well, and that double pivot kept changing. And, you know, they were easy to kind of play for in transition, as Japan demonstrated, or easier than you'd expect. But Neuer wasn't very good when teams got down that end of the pitch, was he? And probably time to hang up his gloves at international
Maybe play
level.
Ter Stegen.
Yeah, I mean,
Might be
Poor old Ter Stegen.
probably been certainly one of the best keepers in the world over the last 5 years. But I mean, the thing is with Neuer, every time we've counted him out, he's then come back and had an amazing season. And he is still quite a proactive keeper, except when the ball's in the air. At this World Cup, didn't claim a single one of the 22 crosses put into Germany's box. That's a bit weird.
But Ter Stegen coming into this World Cup has been an absolute disgrace at Barcelona. He's been so good for Barcelona. There was a time period.
I never know what you mean when you say something like that.
So
Has he
good.
been great? Has he been terrible?
There was a time period about 11 games in, and he had a save percentage of about 92% at Barcelona.
I mean, he
Just
hadn't faced many
unbeatable.
shots, but yeah.
Like, surely you pick the form goalkeeper. The issue is, it's the player that's never let the country down.
Yeah, what is he now? 37? Neuer?
Old.
So I think the time for any sort of any more remontadas is quickly running out. And I think we saw it with Germany in general. There needs to be a succession plan, and one needs to emerge quickly in order for them to be favourites going into any other major tournaments after this. Like, there needs to be a handover at some point. And it doesn't sound like major surgery, does it? A 37-year-old handing the number one spot to a 29-year-old, a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
It feels like an easy decision, and one that should have been made maybe in this tournament or in the build-up to this tournament. But yeah, Neuer, a season and a half ago, did have a comeback campaign. But I think that's probably bought him a little bit too much rope.
Can we talk a little bit about Edouard Mendy?
Well, I guess we have to mention him. People will be saying we have to mention him. Saved 50% of the shots on target he faced. Not tremendous. And 7 goals conceded from 5.4 XG. So that is an underperformance. But what I'd say about Mendy is Mendy looks really shaky and just looks like something has gone seriously wrong with him over the last kind of year. But what I will say is Senegal were going to lose to England regardless of what Mendy did.
Yeah.
Whereas if Neuer had had a great World Cup or Simon had had a better World Cup, then Spain and Germany could have gone at least one round further, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, we'll let you guys decide at home. You can start building an 11 from our suggestions, and those are the 3 goalkeeping options. Let's move on to some defenders, and there's lots to pick from here, I think.
Should we start with the right-back slot?
Can do.
Okay. Well, I mean, staying with Spain, Dani Carvajal was pretty bad at this tournament. 0% success rate, taking the ball off dribblers at World Cups. I mean, Llorente and Aspi also played
they did.
on that right-hand side, didn't they? So there was an element of rotation. But both were similarly poor in that regard. I think all those defenders only won the ball between them 5 times in the 4.5 games they played. So teams experienced joy down that flank. And I think Sofian Boufal demonstrated that
Versus
handsomely,
Llorente.
Oh my God,
against Llorente. I think he completed 6 dribbles before he came off Boufal, and he dribbled past Llorente 3 times alone in that fixture. So
It was a problem that Enrique couldn't solve, though, the right back. He tried
textbook
everything.
ass
Didn't
whooping.
he?
Yeah.
He tried literally everything.
Well, Pedri literally stepped into the right back slot during that game to shore up that right hand side. It was embarrassing.
I thought it was they were at their best when Balde came in, to be honest.
On the left hand side.
I think if you Balde played on the right as well. I think if you put him on the right and you play a wing back system, maybe that's your best situation. Or you've just got to commit to one of these guys, because having Carvajal for a bit, having Aspi for a bit, having Llorente for a bit. Carvajal did win a League and Champions League double quite recently. Just commit to him and go for it, or try something completely different and say, right, okay, this is our kind of succession plan. I mean, obviously now it's not Luis Enrique's plan anymore; it'd be somebody else's. But this was just it was a bad zone for them all along. And when teams are happy to let you have the ball, and bunker the way that Morocco did, you kind of need that little bit of extra creativity, that bit of extra spark from those positions. They didn't really get it from Jordi Alba at this World Cup, but they certainly didn't get it from the right back slot.
Yeah. No, I remember when we did the post-match reaction, didn't we, for Morocco versus Spain? And we had a look at sort of some creative numbers from their fullbacks in this tournament, and only Azpilicueta, I think, was putting up over 1.3 key passes a game, and they were just Hail Marys into the box to Morata, weren't they? But yeah, I mean, interesting stat we've got down here. Only the Netherlands conceded a larger percentage of their shots against from the right flank than Spain, which is 26%. So yeah, teams keyed onto that weakness, and Spain probably paid a bit of a price. But also, Dani Carvajal is generally disrespected unnecessarily. As you say, he got a very extensive trophy cabinet. But should we move on to centre halves, or have you got any other shots for right back? We've basically just pat down all of Spain's right backs.
Yeah, we've got to put Jose Jimenez in there, haven't we?
At centre half?
Yeah, centre back.
Well, all their success has been based on defence, right, over the last 12 years or something.
I mean, the Uruguay as units were so underwhelming. I think we can all agree now. Like, a lot of people at home would have said that they have them down for dark horses. Nowhere near dark horses, like dead horses, to be quite honest with you. I think lowest tackle percentage of any defender at the World Cup, Jimenez. And I think he's a player that's been suffering a little bit with the Atletico Madrid monotony. I feel like his career path at one stage was taking off, full flight, and it's really started to level out now. And I think at the World Cup he was, really poor, way below his usual standards. So I was pretty disappointed by him, I have to say.
Do you mean from like a PR perspective? I don't think he's no longer touted as like one of the world's best.
No, but he was, wasn't he? There was definitely he was on the trajectory to become one of the world's.
Remember,
and
he's
really
Chelsea
leveled out
every summer for about 5 years.
Yeah, and they wanted like 100 mil from him. Like his career is badly leveled out now, hasn't it? Like he's not in that category of the world's best centre backs, which he was definitely on course to be part of when the Atletico unit was at its best. Now the Atletico unit has fallen apart a little bit, and it's got a bit monotonous. I feel like you're not seeing the best Jimenez anymore, and you certainly didn't at this World Cup.
There was a time when if him and Godin were together, whether that be for the national side or club side, the defence just seemed impregnable, right?
Yeah.
And now you just kind of like, it's just another centre-back pairing. They've lost that.
Yeah. No, for sure, edge. Absolutely. I think...
But that's a good shout. Should we move on to like
it's got to be in there. Oh, gosh. What
Probably
there?
any German centre-back could go in here, or you could even take, Kehrer, who... playing out of position at right back, but not a good World Cup from him either. Rudiger all over the shop. I mean, there were so many errors. Admittedly, they were asked to defend in wide areas a lot, those centre-backs, especially against Japan, and Japan just toasted them again and again. And, there was a lot of criticism for David Raum because he was really far up the pitch, but that was his job. He was the only guy really creating, getting forward out of that back line, and they were kind of flexing into a back three. But it just felt like Japan were a pretty good side. They got out of the group, but Takuma Asano is not a world-class player. It wasn't like they were getting roasted by incredible wingers. They were getting roasted by guys who are playing in the lower reaches of the German league. Or it just felt like you'd expect those guys, none of whom is slow, none of whom is skillless on the ball. Zula, Schlotterbeck and Rudiger, you'd expect them all to be able to handle those guys in wide areas, and they couldn't do it.
No, I agree. Especially after how kind of pleased I was with Dortmund's business in the summer, kind of taking their bad performances quite personally. I think Amati, Rahman are good shouts as well. We can talk about Joachim Mæhle on the left-hand side, who was Denmark's joint-top goal scorer during qualification, wasn't it? I mean, we can put Denmark down for any Danish player for any position here. They were really underwhelming, weren't they? But in terms of like falling short of our expectations, I thought he would have a really strong tournament. But no, Denmark's only goal in this campaign was one centre half to another. I think it was Christensen, wasn't it?
I think it was Anderson to Christensen.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Any other shots for left back?
For left back, not really.
Not massively, not off the top of my head. Anyway, not off the top of my head. Maybe you guys at home can let us know in the comments below. Midfielders, take it away. Please help me.
I think midfield and attack, we can make a whole team out of these.
Okay.
I think there have been so many underwhelming big midfielders at this tournament. I mean, Busquets, I just don't really know what he was in the team to do. He didn't really defend.
Play Rodri.
He won the ball less than Gavi and Pedri in the midfield. He got on the ball less than, I think, 7 or other players, something like that in the side. And actually, he was passing the ball forward less than someone like Rodri. Rodri was getting the ball into the final third 11 times a game.
Yeah.
Now, Busquets was down around kind of the 7-8 mark, which is still very good, but it's not that good relative to the rest of the squad. And I kind of think, if you're not there to defend, and you're not there to dribble or create, and you're not there to move the ball into the final third, what are you there to do? You might as well just play an out-and-out DM and let Pedri and Gavi get forward as much as they want. Or you can just have him be your progressive passer, and in that case, maybe play Pedri in more of an attacking role. I don't know. It just felt like, why is Busquets here at this stage? Why is he forcing Rodri into the back line when Rodri is in his prime? And Busquets, he's been, I would argue, maybe the greatest holding midfielder in history, in football history. at this point in his career, he is no longer that. And I just didn't really understand why he was there. But actually, it was the World Cup for DMs having bad tournaments. Krychowiak as well for Poland. Absolutely rank. Poland were terrible. He's playing for Al Shabab, I think.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
You can't be that surprised when he's crap.
One of 7 tackles successful at this World Cup, Krychowiak.
On loan at Al Shabab from Krasnodar.
Yeah. I also want to shout out, in a slightly more progressive era, out for Aaron Ramsey. Has to be a candidate for this. Just looked like he was just so past it, didn't he? I think it was 1 chance created in 3 games. But more than his ability, I thought it's just like his legs had gone. Like he didn't he could get up and down the pitch anymore. And the tackle from behind on Henderson, I was just like, oh my God, he's lost it.
Yeah, well, only 2 tackles and interceptions the whole tournament, and obviously at international level, he has been put on a pedestal for his work rate, for his box-to-box nature. 1 shot, 1 chance created in 3 games. And that shot only yielded about 0.02 xG, so that was speculative, to say that the least. That'd be kind. But I just think with Ramsey, you could anticipate this level of performance coming into this tournament, right? Because he struggled at club level so much. But then there was just a small part of me that kind of wanted him to turn it on for Wales, him and Bale, like as one last hurrah. Quite disappointed that didn't happen. But at the other end of the spectrum, a man very much in his prime who didn't deliver, who we have to talk about, KDB.
Oh my God.
Awful.
I mean, again, Wales were poor, Belgium were poor as a team, so maybe it feels a little bit harsh to single these guys out, but some of his numbers, absolutely honking. Only Courtois won possession less than him in the Belgian squad. That's 1 tackle in 3 games. We don't expect an awful lot of defensive output from him, but he was literally, when games were passing Belgium by, he was sort of loitering around in the middle third, wasn't he? He got dispossessed more than any Belgian player. Forgivable if you're creating high-quality chances, but he wasn't. Just 3 touches in the box across 3 games, which is fewer than Vertonghen and 4 other Belgians.
Not just his fault though, that is it. That is a systematic problem, surely.
Well, he was doing more progressive. He was playing a bit deeper, right? He was doing a bit more progressive passing, and you could argue that if, say, Tielemans had played every game and had a really good tournament, then De Bruyne would have been able to get forward more. But Chris is absolutely right. When they are struggling, you want him to do what he does for Man City. When often they're struggling, he pops up on the edge of the box and he gets away a shot. In this tournament, he just could not do it at all, and his pass accuracy was horrendous. I think it was what was it? It was the lowest. I think it was like the 5th lowest in the squad or something like that. It was absolutely.
Yeah, only 5 Belgian players had a worse pass accuracy.
And they were all forwards. They were all strikers.
The thing is, KDB does have a tendency to hit like between 75 and 85% pass accuracy. It's a little bit lower than people would expect because he's such a high volume chance creator. But when his chance creation isn't happening and he's not getting shots off, he's not getting touched in the area, that does become a determining factor. And I also think some of the quotes off the field when he was like, we just don't stand a chance to win it, squad's too old. Like, that defeatist attitude clearly didn't help the camp because then there was literally fights in training. So I think it's all well and good trying to be realistic, but being overly negative when you do still have a talented group of players, as the senior, probably the best player in the squad on his day, I think it is unhelpful.
Well, what you want to see from your best player is when your team is struggling, for him to sacrifice his own game in order to make them play better. Like we see Messi. Messi's done it time and time again with Argentina. And of course, to compare him against Messi, it's doing no one any favours. But that's just the first example that sprang to mind. Yeah, it looks like for Argentina, he will drop deep. It will create, he'll help them progress up the pitch. KDB could have done that, but it was almost like he was looking at that double pivot of Den Donker and Axel Witsel and just thinking, this isn't going to work. We're not favourites. I can see us falling apart here, and I'm just going to kind of watch the house burn down.
Yeah, no good. I also want to bring up Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, who I thought was, he huffed and puffed, but just offered very, very little, given this is a player who is so highly touted. Lazio reportedly wanting 100 million for him. I no way saw a €100 million player playing in that central midfield. He's meant to be the driving force creating from midfield. I think 7 players in the Serbia squad created more chances than him. I was so underwhelmed by Serbia. I was really expecting Uruguay levels of dark horse. And ended up with Tesco lasagna there.
Yeah, you look at the squad and you think, okay, well, this is workable. You imagine, say, if they were as organised as, say, Switzerland are, they're a more talented squad than Switzerland.
For sure. There's so many talented players in there.
Yeah, you look at Milinkovic, Savic, Mitrovic, Vlahovic. Tadic, Kostic. There's so many guys in here who you think, okay, you've actually got a really solid spine here. But yeah, Milinkovic-Savic in this tournament, low pass progression, low creativity, low shot output, low defensive output. Like, what is he giving you? I really don't understand it. And yeah, that idea of you want people to come into the World Cup and play like they want to win the World Cup. Jack Grealish in very limited time at this World Cup has like quadrupled his defensive output at Manchester City. Yeah. It looks like he wants to win the World Cup. That's what I want to see. I just don't understand. Griezmann is playing like he wants to win another World Cup. With Milinkovic-Savic, just playing like he kind of expected to go out.
Yeah. Any other midfielders we want to bring up? I mean, Christian Eriksen didn't have a good tournament from a Danish point of view.
Yeah, a lot of double pivots didn't.
But he
Thinking
did,
about it, Højbjerg, Gundogan and Goretzka.
Did become the first player from Denmark though to play in his teens, 20s and 30s at World Cup. So
great.
Yeah.
That gives him
about Mason Mount.
What
about Mason Mount?
But I've not spent an awful lot of time thinking about Mason Mount.
Yeah, because he hasn't done anything.
But that's because he has now been benched. He's only started one game, and then subsequently Jordan Henderson has taken effect.
He's played the same minutes as Foden.
Wow.
Yeah, so when we did our England team prior to the tournament, did not have Mount in my starting lineup. And I think we saw against Germany in the Nations League that owing to his relentless energy and his eye for a killer pass, that he can be a really effective impact substitute in the last 20 minutes of games. And I do think that is how Gareth Southgate will use him in the latter stages of the World Cup. Like, it's going to be really...
Shooting this before France, by the way.
We're shooting this before France. Yeah, very worth noting. It's going to be very hard to drop Phil Foden, isn't it? And even like Marcus Rashford is knocking at the door in terms of a starting place on the left-hand side.
And also, if you were looking to bring a player off the bench, okay, you personally... You're looking at the bench and you've got Mount there in the form he's in, and you've got Maddison in the form he's been in. Who do you pick to put on if you need a goal in the latter stages of a game? I don't think it's Mount.
No, if you need a goal, if it's that particular set of circumstances, perhaps Maddison. Yeah. But if you're looking to stay in the game and want to be a bit more sound defensively, or you're defending a lead, then maybe Mount is better. So at least he has those options on the bench.
He hasn't defended well at this World Cup. That's that's why I, before the tournament, was like, well, I assume England will take Mount, because he does give you that creativity, that vision, but a bit more defensive solidity. But at this World Cup, 2 tackles and interceptions in his time on the pitch. He played twice as many minutes as Grealish, has won the ball a third as much.
I actually thought he was quite good against Iran, though. In the 80 odd minutes he played in that game, I don't think he finished it, did he? But I thought he was actually pretty outstanding.
I thought in the first half he was particularly good. So I think it was like him and Sterling adding like impetus, adding energy. When the rest of the team looked a little bit sluggish in patches. Maybe it was only the first 20-25. Actually thinking about it now, but yeah. I'm fine with him.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's other players in that sort of, asked to play in a slightly more advanced role. Like Fede Valverde, I didn't think had a particularly good World Cup either, given his own standard as potentially the best central midfielder in world football over the last 6 months.
Ooh. Well, his performances contrasted really starkly with Bentancur's, didn't they? And Bentancur was doing exactly what Pat and I were talking about earlier, where even if your output isn't great, make up for it, that shortfall, with just pure effort and desire, and Bentancur was doing that.
And it didn't feel like he was the same player he is for Madrid, which is obviously because he's not playing alongside some of the superstar names. But like you say, he's playing alongside an extremely competent Bentancur right now. It's one of the most exciting midfielders at the World Cup, Bentancur and Fede Valverde.
He had moments, didn't he? Valverde had moments.
But not what
he
I was
wasn't
expecting to
games.
grab the World Cup by the balls and kind of be like, come on, this is mine. All right, let's move on to some forwards then that we didn't particularly like the performances of. We've got to talk about Lukaku, haven't we? I actually felt sorry for him in the Croatia. I don't really want to pile onto him because, it's close to 2 XG, wasn't it? It didn't at the back of the net. And when he came off, he was visibly upset. I
thought a few of them were forgivable as well. That first one that hits the post, the defender's in front of him, obstructing the space.
But it's just a lack of anticipation, isn't it? It's a player who hasn't played football.
Yeah, it's the last one, isn't it? Where he's just kind of gone a little bit too early, and it's just at the back post, and there's no real reason.
You can tell he's played 30 minutes of football this season. I felt sorry for him, and it was just an absolute disaster. And he is a player, I think, that relies quite heavily on confidence, even at club level.
Okay. Yeah,
I think this will have.
Should we talk about Ronaldo then instead of Lukaku?
Let's move on from Lukaku.
Ronaldo made a lot of stats providers' worst team of the tournament based on their quite arbitrary ratings. But one shot on target, and it was a pen. Subbed out for Gonzalo Ramos, wasn't he? He was absolutely superb when he came in against Switzerland. I think Portugal went from averaging around 5 shots to 9 as soon as they made that change. And what was really sort of almost embarrassing when he came on was the offsides, like clocking up those offsides, going so early because he knew his pace was sort of, well, he couldn't beat his marker. There was like 2 or 3 in that game, wasn't there, where he went super early because he feared being caught. But instead of just like staying in line, holding it up, bringing someone else into play, he was absolutely desperate to score. And yeah, I think his powers have obviously waned, and it's there for everyone to see, and there's just no hiding in the last stages of the tournament. And I don't think he will start. Do you think he'll start for the rest of the tournament?
No, but I still think he'll have an impact. I do still think there's another goal limit at this tournament, and I think it could come at a big moment.
You wouldn't
bet
against it, would you?
Absolutely not. Like I would not be surprised if he scored the winner against Morocco in the quarterfinals, even if it is coming off the bench. Like there is still impacts for him to have in this tournament. Do I think they come from the start? Probably not. I would also go Gonzalo Ramos because I think that improves the team's structure with Felix and Bruno Fernandes and Bernardo Silva as well. I think they all look better as soon as they don't have to pass to Ronaldo and everything has to go through Ronaldo. Exactly the same way as it has been at Manchester United, and that's part of the reason he's left the club now. But I don't think I'd have him in my worst team in the tournament just because I think like there are other strikers that have been worse, and I still think he's going to have an impact in these quarterfinals.
Darwin Núñez?
Potentially. I thought Luis Suarez was a lot worse though.
Yeah, but Luis Suarez is 35.
Yeah, but he stunk. He was so bad, man. Other than the last game against Ghana, where he just suddenly decided to produce a bit of old Suarez.
But there was basically no service all tournament. And again, you know, you kind of want your, whatever he is, £80 million young striker to pull you through games to some degree. And Darwin Núñez does have some pace. He has some dribbling ability. We've seen him do it in the Portuguese league. In this tournament, he was basically anonymous. He took fewer shots. Every time Cavani came on, he immediately had more of an impact than Núñez would have. And managed to get more shots off, seemed more dangerous, more intelligent movement, harder work. Like I don't know, it's Núñez, it would have really benefited him to have a hot World Cup, and it was exactly the opposite of that.
Yeah. Another player I think at this stage, again, we're shooting before the quarterfinals, he could still have an impact. I think Lautaro Martinez has been
honking.
I don't know what his...
I disagree with this.
His finishing's been so snatched. Maybe it's less... Yeah, his all-round play's not been too bad, but his finishing... Like, he's had some great chances. Absolute snatchville. And, like, dragging the shots, not striking the ball
2 shots
cleanly.
on target in 4 games.
They do look better a team with Julian Alvarez up front than him.
Yeah, I guess Alvarez certainly helps them because they have a bit more pace and a bit more width, which they haven't had before. But at the same time, I just think a couple of runs are timed a little bit better in that first game, and we're saying, oh, Martinez has actually had an okay tournament. I still think he's their best striker. Obviously, you know, not really thinking of Messi as a striker at this point. Lautaro Martinez is a guy who, if a chance drops to him, you would expect him to be the most likely to finish it in that front line bar Messi.
He hasn't been at this World Cup.
Okay, but I think he will be.
Okay. What about Heung-min Son?
Yeah, I mean,
it's rough to come out of a long layoff.
Yeah, and he hasn't had a great season.
His club form has kind of just continued into this World Cup, right? Only 3 league goals for Spurs.
13, they all came in one game. He's only scored in one game.
League appearances this season. Yeah, 0 goals against the sides not called Leicester. Yeah, I mean, his numbers were okay. I think it was like just over 2 shots, just over a key pass, around 1 dribble per game, but wasn't very effective. And I think, obviously, we have a high opinion of him. Yeah. We were expecting him to be his country's marquee player, and I think 4 other players had a higher non-penalty expected goals and assists in the South Korean side. So really, I mean, not what you're going to be reading as Son. He was... I'm not saying he was a passenger, but he was nullified fairly easily in this tournament, and I think we're all quite excited to see what he could do.
The assist he did get, though, was worth waiting for. Yeah. I mean, that was incredible.
Great assist. 1 assist in 4 games, though, 0 goals. Probably expecting a bit more from a player like that, but I certainly won't put him in the worst.
No. All right. Any other suggestions you want to get in for the forwards? Or
Lewandowski.
Oh, Robert Lewandowski.
Lewandowski has to go. Poland were atrocious to a man. But actually, maybe Szczęsny comes out of it with a little bit of credit.
Szczęsny was great, especially against Argentina.
Everybody else was dreadful. And Lewandowski, I mean, look, it's rough because you're saying we're going to try and get the ball to Lewandowski. He holds the ball up and we hope something magical happens. And he got marshalled so well by Romero, by Lisandro Martinez. He just couldn't get away. But no player took more touches at the World Cup, which saw his team lose the ball. He was dispossessed, I think, 22 times in his games. Okay, he got a couple of goals, but one of them was a penalty. And it just felt like Lewandowski was meant to be the star. You know, he has been the best centre-forward in the world for some time now. And I thought he was basically anonymous, like half the time when I was watching them. I was really disappointed by him, but I was disappointed by Poland as a unit.
And a couple of his penalty was kind of a consolation penalty as well, wasn't it? And he missed the first one, was a horrendous sort of stuttering run.
Horrific.
No good. But anyway, we'll throw it to you guys at home then to build the 11 and also get some more suggestions for the worst players you've seen play at the World Cup so far in the comments below. We'll do a couple of quick fire questions before we head out then. Starting with an Arsenal related one, because we have had the news, haven't we, that Gabby Jesus has undergone surgery on an MCL problem with his knee. Maybe 3 months out, if you believe reports, might be shorter than that. And we have a question which says, how do you deal with it?
Well, it's difficult, right? We probably deal with it by not competing for the league, is I think what we expect. I wouldn't really worry about them not making top four, Arsenal, because their lead is so substantial. And actually, Eddie Nketiah, when he's played this season, has played really, really well. Very limited minutes.
And last season, when he had to step up.
Sure, but in the past, we've always said Nketiah's played well when he's played like a poacher. You know, he's kind of known for being a finisher, right? For being a fox in the box kind of striker. When he's come on this season, you've seen him dropping deeper, beating men, creating chances. Now, obviously, you're not going to get production out of him like you get from Gabby Jesus, but he's a good backup striker, and Arsenal have invested a lot in him in wages. If they're not willing to give him those minutes up front, then why have they kept him?
I think Arteta will be totally willing to give him those. I think Arteta is the type of coach, and as he's proven over the last couple of years, that is absolutely willing to just go, Eddie, it's your time to step up. I don't think there'll be an issue there. I think if that wasn't to work, there's perfectly feasible options of playing Martinelli through the middle and Emile Smith-Rowe off the left. Now he's back. And you've got the January market around the corner where you might be able to dip in and take a short-term loan option. Like, I would not be worried about this at all if I was Arsenal. I think this is, if it was going to happen, which it probably was, because you have got quite a thin squad, then this is the perfect time. You've got a 3-week break, you've got a January window. Like, I'd be absolutely
Would you sign somebody in January? And if so,
if there was a good loan available up front, then yeah, I would probably just take a backup player as a loan. Like, the chat online about, we should pick up Ronaldo. Steer well clear. That would be ridiculousness. But if there's a cheap loan going, I think I would absolutely have a nibble. Yeah, I wouldn't have no problem with that at all.
Lukaku?
No.
Apparently, Moussa Dembele is available for really cheap in January.
Yeah, his contract's kind of coming up, and he weirdly hasn't played that much this season, given that he had such a sensational year last year. It was really, really good. But I mean, Lyon's dealings are always a little bit difficult to understand, I would say. It's difficult to say. They've kind of invested that time in Lacazette, haven't they? But there's also the option of recalling Balogun, I guess, but I don't think Arsenal will do that. He's having a phenomenal season on loan at Rams.
Memphis for 6 months and said, look, we'll give you 6 months before you then go on a free.
I think he'd be the perfect guy.
Like, I think that Memphis is an absolutely fine option for 6 months. I think Barcelona would be absolutely willing to let him go if it meant he could save all of his wages. Just even for 6 months cover and say, we'll give you a short-term contract and then you can look again, or we'll give you an 18-month contract that's reviewable in the summer. I think Memphis isn't the worst option, so I think January is perfect for Arsenal. All right, let's do another one. Lucas says, Spain have sacked Enrique. Martinez has left Belgium. Who should they hire?
It looks like it's going to be the under-21 coach.
Yeah.
Luis de la Fuente. So I don't have a huge amount of knowledge on him. And Spain feels like a smart kind of succession, doesn't it? Because Luis Enrique was probably the highest caliber of manager in terms of people available.
And at the World Cup. He was the best manager at the World Cup.
That they could have got. I can't even think of any sort of experienced older heads they might bring in Van Gaal style to guide them through qualifications for the Euros, to be perfectly honest. Honest?
What about if we flip it then? Where do you think Luis Enrique could go? Because he is still a super high caliber coach. You know, he was being linked heavily with Manchester United. I've seen him heavily linked over the last couple of days with a move to Atletico Madrid. So should Diego Simeone move? Do you think that's a good option?
That'd be kind of fun. He's a quality coach. He's
I
a
think
really
he's
good
great.
coach.
Yeah.
And he's also not going to come in and demand that you spend hundreds of millions of pounds.
Yeah.
He'll work with what you've got and he's a solution finder, I think, which is what makes him quite a good fit for the national team. Because, when you have a weakness in X or Y position, he will try and work out something to get around it. And let's be honest, a couple of bounces go another way and Spain could still be in this tournament and be a considerable danger against sides who are maybe more willing to come out against them, as you'd expect from Portugal, from France, from England.
And I think he suits club football more, Luis Enrique, because he does have the very specific style of play. And I think he can, if he's on the training ground working with a group of players every single day, then they are going to improve rapidly. So I think he's going to have a host of like a bunch of options. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see him still available in summer. Conte leaves Tottenham and Enrique goes to Tottenham.
Enrique to Tottenham.
I think Enrique to Tottenham does make sense. I just don't see Conte going, do you?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I could see him taking a top Serie A job as well. Like
Juventus.
His first job was in Serie A, right?
An Inter or a Juve or an AC. Obviously, the managerial situations there are pretty sound at current. Normally a favourite, aren't they, when something like this happens? But we'll see. Yeah.
All right, there we go. Let's wrap it up there, shall we? Because there's big World Cup games just around the corner. If you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Vibes, make sure you leave a comment below with your questions for next week. You can watch other episodes of Sunday Vibes and live reactions to all of the biggest World Cup games right on this channel. So make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.